right, in this edition of For Your Business, we're going to introduce you to New York developer James McManus and his attorney, Andrew Laufer. And wait till you hear this story. Unfortunately, I have two friends that went down sort of a similar path of what happened with James. So here's the initially, just in a nutshell, what happened. If we go back to August 14th, 2024, he signed, again, he's a New York developer. He signed an $8.2 million term sheet intended to satisfy, follow the bouncing ball, what was owed on a current Connecticut project, and of course, fund the completion. This is the process you go through. But then what happened is Fairbridge rescinded the offer, and they did that the next day. And how crazy is that? You think, how were you notified? And we'll get to that. And then there was a plan that came to light that they wanted an additional $1 million that, by the way, had nothing to do with the project. So you figure you sign it, you feel good, you celebrate, and then it flips around on you. And then on top of it, you're asked for $1 million. And the sad part of this is, and we'll let James tell his story, but the ordeal severely hurt him health-wise and contributed, he feels definitely, to heart failure, and it culminated ultimately in a life or death surgery for him. So thank you both for coming on.
Katie, thank you for having us.
James, very glad to be here. Thank you.
James, tell us what happened. Like, you heard me with the setup, and you're a developer. Wow, you get the sheet, boom, it's funded. That really is time to just take a breath and say, we did it, it's great, we're moving forward. And then what happened?
So, Katie, you teed it up perfectly. As soon as we received the term sheet for the $8.2 million, we were going to continue with the momentum. We did not miss a beat on the project, and we were looking forward to getting it done within 7 months. The very next day, we get the email that they say we are rescinding the offer. Later that night, an employee who happens to be a disbarred attorney that did federal time for real estate fraud, who works for Fairbridge Asset, I like to call them mismanagement, sends an email to one of my partners and says that this has nothing to do with him or the project. It has to do with Jimmy and another topic. It's a different subject altogether. In New York, it was another deal, but it had nothing to do with this project at all. Different LLCs, different ownerships. But so basically at that point, they went right. So the next day, my partner sends over this email to me, and now I realize I'm targeted. Now I realize, there's different types of lenders in this market, and they're predatory lenders, and basically they loan to own, and loan to own under any circumstances, by all means necessary. And they pulled out all the tactics, the deception, the coercion that led to the financial harm, because what they did was they held the project up 10 months because I fought them. I was not going to go for this. It was completely illegal. It had nothing to do with anything. And they waged a campaign against me. At the same time, there's an interest reserve that's held in the account. It was $50,000 a month. So during those 10 months, they continued to take $50,000 to the tune of an additional $500,000, delayed the project 10 months. And 3 months or 2 months after this occurred, I had a heart attack. I did not realize it, though. I didn't feel well. I was muscling through the day. However, I ended up in fast forward St. Francis Hospital December 4th with a sextuplet bypass, a heart valve repair, all induced by the stress over those 90 days, let's say. I've never been in the hospital for a heart attack in my life. I've never had it. I've been an athlete and fairly in shape. So their campaign took a physical toll and a financial toll. And what we've uncovered, Kate, I'll let Andrew kind of get into that as well, or any other questions. I'm sorry, I kind of went a little long there.
No, that's okay. So Andrew, in setting this up, then what do you do? So now what do you do as you're uncovering more and more about what the company's done?
Yeah, no, I mean, we've been peeling back the onion and on this, and it's incredible. What we're finding we've been flooded with phone calls of similar conduct that others have suffered at the hands of Fairbridge and their employees. And what they do is they structure these defaults that no matter how flush you may be with cash, how lucrative the project may be, and how they will end up making a profit on the actual loan, none of that appears to matter. What they try and do is just unjustly enrich themselves by staging and structuring a foreclosure action so they can not only get their loan back with interest, they can also seize the improved property, all the sweat equity that my client put into it, as well, as others. So it really is just, as far as we're concerned, a racketeering scenario. How they've set the stage here in order to just seize everything, seize people's livelihoods. And what I've been finding is that generally they seem to target people that are less likely or less capable of fighting back, whether it's their history, whether it's their financial condition, and so forth, making seizure of the property, of the asset, that much easier.
So then where do you go from here? What can you do? Because you're peeling back the onion, the great description, like you said.
Yeah.
What can you do? What can you do to continue to fight it? File a suit? What comes next?
Well, yeah. I mean, once you obviously compile your facts and you apply it to the law, you determine that what we have here, you have a serious case of fraud, bank fraud, wire fraud. This is a prima facie case of civil RICO, as far as we're concerned. It goes beyond a mere breach of contract. It's not merely a disagreement over terms of a piece of paper. This is a staged and intentional process that they follow through in order to exploit these situations to the best of their ability. As I said, to recover both the penalty interest on the loan, because we're talking foreclosure interest, default interest, which is much higher than what was originally agreed to, and couple that with seizure of the property. So they have a windfall.
For you, and obviously you're listening to what Andrew's saying. What would give you the ultimate satisfaction after nearly, with the stress, let's face it, losing your life?
So Kate, I'd like to bring up to that point. What we've uncovered in this and about the satisfaction is that Fairbridge mismanagement not only deceives the borrowers. What we realize is they're deceiving their investors, their institutional investors, Oaktree, Churchill, Brookfield, American Life. And by that, I say, is nothing is more clear and evident than they represent in their private placement mandate, a due diligence section. Well, in that due diligence section, they seem to have a dedicated platform to convicted known racketeers, individuals with personal judgments on them, high echelon government informants, and the list goes on and on. I don't think their institutional investors are aware of that. However, what we uncovered was the shell game that they play with the LLCs to seize in these properties and to hide the guarantors to these loans. And what Jamie Dimon has been out there saying recently, ironically enough, in October, which is when we started to fight back as well, is he said that he sees the private credit industry starting to have the fractures identical to 2008 housing crisis, which we actually had brought up in our case as well. So what happens is I think that we're starting to unravel a much deeper case of wrongdoing and a fragile market that in the commercial side of things. So the satisfaction that I have is bringing everyone to justice, because at the end of the day, they don't care about not only the project, they don't care about the lives, literally the lives that they infect. And so we're looking for our day in court and go to trial.
Yeah, it seems like, we're not there yet, but, we may be exposing some systemic rot in the private commercial lending industry. And this is as far as I'm concerned, prima facie case of that. It's not about just merely making a profit on a loan, all right, which is a nice profit, especially in private equity, commercial loan, and they're getting their funding, as Jimmy accurately states, from $100 million credit line they have, I believe, with Oaktree here, and others, and Oaktree and these companies, where they get these credit lines from, I can guarantee you have certain standards that they want Fairbridge to adhere to when they're giving out loans. And God only knows what they're representing to these companies, because these companies are investment vehicles for retirement plans for public employees across the nation, school teachers, firemen, police officers. So what exactly are they exposing themselves to via Fairbridge? There's a lot of questions here that need to be answered.
Does it at least make you feel good that you're fighting back?
Kate, you have no idea. Thank God I have the ability to, because I have great support around me. However, the one thing I've been doing my entire life is standing up to the fight. So we don't back down. And in this case, what I've been told by previous partners of Fairbridge and other companies that they had is nobody was able to stand up to them, because they've made threats to go get law firms with 100 attorneys and to fight. But I'll take Andrew in the foxhole any day of the week, and we're not going anywhere. So you'll hear more about us as the time goes on.
All right, we'll keep in touch and we'll find out what happens next. Thank you both.
Thank you very much.